How's it yangin', dudes? My name is Sean, and welcome back to my channel. And man, normally we poke some fun at the mainstream media, but this Yang news just keeps on coming, man. Just keeps on coming. Now, 538, they've been an outlet that's been fair to Yang. They don't really sugarcoat too much with Yang, but they're not afraid to just say it like it is either when he's doing really well. So, shout out to 538. Sometimes there's been a couple articles that's been a little iffy, not just with Yang, but just in general. But for the most part, 538. I haven't used NewsGuard, so I'm not sure what the rating is. And it'd be cool if we get a sponsorship, right? You know what I'm saying? A little sponsorship with the NewsGuard people out there. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, let's get into the article. What we know about Andrew Yang's base. Now they get into some really interesting things about young voters and how Yang is kind of killing it in that regard. So let's read. Whether he's dancing the Cupid Shuffle or wearing a bottom pledging to make Americans think harder, tech entrepreneur Andrew Yang has run anything but a normal presidential campaign. That seems fitting for a political novice whose background in law and technology has given his campaign an unusual top issue, a signature proposal for a universal basic income. Yang calls it the freedom dividend, because it polls better with Americans, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, to mitigate the effects of automation and job loss on the economy. At one debate, Yang even announced that his campaign would give 10 families $1,000 per month for the next year as a case study for his UBI proposal. Although Yang's support continues to hover in single digits, except for a couple polls where he's been at 11%, but they don't count that poll because then they can say that he's in double digits and that'd make him look good. But anyways, getting off that tangent, beat that horse to a pulp. Although Yang's support continues to hover in single digits, about 3% nationally on average. So like I said, they don't sugarcoat it, you know what I mean? But they're fair. So let's continue. Let's get to the fair part. He is one of 7 candidates who made the December debate. He is also the only candidate of color to make the cut. So he's representing big there. So here's a look at what we know about Yang's small but loyal support. The Yang Gang. Hey, that's us. Shout out to us. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you ever thought that just a small group of people can make national headlines? Because we doing it. We doing it all day, every day. Anyway, okay. So, my bad. I had to pat ourselves on the back there. And what it can tell us about his presidential bid. Oh, by the way, I forgot. Smack alike. I'm supposed to be saying that more often in the beginning of the videos, I'm told. With the monetization and stuff. Smack it alike. No notifications. Okay. Anyways. Yang's base is young. Here it comes. Yang's strength comes primarily from voters under the age of 45, especially those between the ages of 18 and 29. That is a very big key demographic. If we can get all these young people to come out and vote, man, it's over with. It's over with. So, Take Morning Consult's large sample weekly tracking poll, where they interviewed more than 13,000 likely Democratic primary voters nationwide, December 9th to December 15th. In that survey, Yang received 9% support among 18 to 29-year-olds, which puts him 4th behind Bernie Sanders at 44%, former Vice President Joe Biden at 18%, and Elizabeth Warren at 12%. Now, you might be saying, Joe Biden, how in the world could he be behind Joe Biden? It's only because of their large name recognition and their large campaigns in general. They're a lot larger than Yang's. Because of the name recognition, they kind of get like a little head start there. They just have so much more people, so it's going to overshadow Yang's support. Even though it's a percentage-wise, so if you stack their percentage, let's say they're all on an even playing field, right? And they all had the exact same amount of voters, but you kept the same, varying degrees of support among each candidate. Yang would come out on top with the youngest people, and Bernie would technically be second. Only because there's so many more people supporting them does it seem like there's more younger people. But if they were on an even playing field, let's say Yang had caught up to them or they had dropped to him and they had a roughly the same amount of people, Yang would have more support between 18 and 29-year-olds. So even though Yang had far less overall support in the polls than Sanders, 4% versus 22%, Yang actually had the largest share, percentage-wise, of supporters under the age of 45, 74% compared to Sanders' 69%. Yang's support mostly comes from younger voters. Shares of overall support of Democratic presidential candidates from the primary voters younger than 45 versus those 45 or older, according to Morning Consult's weekly tracking survey. Okay, so overall support is 44%, But out of that, 44, out of that 4% on average, 18 to 44 year olds, 74% of those, 74% of his base is 18 to 44 year olds. Now, imagine if he was Bernie Sanders' 22 overall percent. There would be so many more younger people voting for Andrew Yang than anybody else, man. That is crazy. That's huge, man. It's huge. It's huge. Anyways, okay. So additionally, Yang enjoys less overall support among the older half of the 18 to 44 range, with the backing of about 5% to 30 to 44-year-olds, putting him fifth behind Sanders, Biden, Warren, and South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg. But really, who cares? You know, I mean, people who are older, you know, they're most likely set in their ways anyways. It's harder to move people who are older, change their mind than people who are younger. It's just the way it is. You know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Sometimes you can, but it's very rare. You know what I mean? So they're most likely set in their ways anyways. They're going to vote if they're 30 to 40 years old and they've been voting for Obama, Clinton, Sanders. They're going to keep doing that. Maybe Biden, and Warren, and Mayor Pete. You know, those are the people who watch mainstream news and they see those people, Biden, Warren, and Pete Buttigieg on TV all the time. So that's, Pete Buttigieg, Biden, Warren, I've heard of them. I guess I'll pick one of those. You know, they don't hear from Yang because Yang's not in the news all the time. And if they would accurately report his polling, he would be in the news a lot more. Looking at you, MSNBC. So, as why Yang has an outsized appeal among younger voters given his overall standing, he has, without question, run an internet-savvy campaign leaning into the meme culture popular among his supporters online. I like to think that, you know, about 8 months ago when hardly anybody knew him and I was making those meme videos, those corrective videos, I kind of think I like to have a little bit to do with that. But, you know, I mean, that's just me. That's just me, you know, sniffing my own ass there. So yeah, he's also spread on well-known podcasts, answered questions from users on Reddit and Quora, promised to give Twitter users $1,000 a month for just retweeting him, which attracted over 100,000 retweets. But Yang also hasn't shied away from discussing the dark underbelly of technology. That's an issue that resonates with many young people who have grown up in an era where tech giants like Amazon, Facebook, and Google have dominated the marketplace and are helping alter the future of work. Yang thinks a UBI is necessary to counteract this sort of economic disruption, especially that things continue to change in the coming years. So, like, while you're trying to fight all of this corruption, the best thing you can do is guarantee that Americans are taken care of first, right? You can't let the Americans just whittle away. People are literally a car crash away from being bankrupt. One thing wrong from being bankrupt, right? So while it's not likely for a Medicare for all single player, you know, socialistic system to pass in America, it's just not likely. It's just the facts on the table. It's just not likely. And the fact that all these companies are continuing to suck up billions and trillions of dollars from our mainstream economies, and none of that's given back to us. The fact that all this is happening means you have to take care of the people first and then rid the corruption. You have to guarantee the people's safety, because if they whittle away to nothing, they're not going to have no will to fight back, and that's what the establishment wants. And Yang is smart. He's already trying to get rid of lobbyists. He's trying to make sure that if you, once you are, let's say, a congressman, you can't go work for Goldman Sachs. You can't go work for pharmaceutical companies. You can't go work for XYZ afterwards. Because it's a double interest. It's, you know, they're lining your pocket so you can have a job after Congress if you pass their fucking shit. So it's just the way it is, guys. It's just the way it is. So Yang has been called a doomer because of his outlook. Believes President Trump won in 2016 because people were worried about losing their jobs in a fast-changing world. And as young people are most familiar with the ins and outs of new technology, it's understandable why a candidate who is heavily engaged in technology benefits pitfalls may be so attractive to younger voters. Yang's base is also very male. In addition to Yang's support, trending young is also very male. For instance, in that morning consult survey, Yang earned 11% among 8 to 9-year-old men versus just 6% among women. That's only half. That's not crazy. Actually, a little more than half. So I don't know what they're getting at with that. And according to the Economist polling with YouGov, his support among men in this age group is about 10%, while his support among women is a low to mid single digits. low to mid single digits, what, like 5, like half. That's really not that big of a deal. Anyway, especially when you're not like more. If you was a female face, you'd think you'd have more. So I don't know. It is what it is. Interesting differences between men and women largely disappear among older age groups. So here's the age in this section. You guys take a look at that chart if you like. Pause the video, do whatever you gotta do. Exit out of that. Okay, so there's also evidence of Yang's appeal to young male voters aside from the polls, however. For example, analysis by Center for Responsive Politics on November found that women are less likely than men to contribute to his campaign. Only 29% of Yang's itemized contributions have come from female donors so far. Excuse me, I think I might be getting a cold here. I don't know. Only Representative Tulsi Gabbard has raised less among women donors, 24%. Another sign is Yang's share price is betting markets. Those participants predominantly are young men, as the publication predicts prices Yang shares around 8 cents. And the reason why he's so popular with young men, I have to raise a guess, is because a lot of times young men, if you look at Jordan Peterson, stuff like that, a lot of young men has been disenfranchised here lately. It's always about there's like 1% of the society who gets catered to. I mean, you can, name them. It's either the trans community or, let's say, just anybody. There's a very small sex, SECT. I'm gonna get this video demonetized, not knowing how to talk. But there's small groups that are predominantly cater to over other people. A lot of times you look in, like, men are less likely to get custody of their kids. Men are less likely to, are more likely to die in the work field. Men are more likely to be in the battlefield in war. You know what I mean? And Yang really appeals to a lot of that, because he's talking about a lot of these things that young men care about, and women too. So I really don't know what that's really about. I mean, you can look at my stats on my channel, and yes, it's more men than women, but it's not like it's nothing. You know what I mean? So I don't even know why that's not necessarily a negative or a positive, really, as long as people are voting for you. You know what I mean? Like, okay. So next thing you'll say that if more Asian people supporting, then that's bad, or more white people supporting, or more black. You know what I mean? Like, it just makes no sense. It's just you know what I mean? It just makes no sense. It's just like a dog whistle, really. So anyways, Yang also draws meaningful support from Asian Americans. Did I really? Oh, man. So yes, of course he would. Why wouldn't he? He's the first Asian American. Just like Barack Obama had an overwhelming support of the black vote. Couldn't have been because he was black. Like, of course. You know what I mean? Like, come on. When America politics, you don't have that many colored people running for the highest office. Those people are normally going to come out and vote for that candidate because it's the first time ever. If you had Asian, presidents galore, it wouldn't be a big deal. If you had, you know what I mean? So it's just new for America. I'm not even going to read that. Yang is also an outsider candidate. As a fellow outsider candidate, Yang's appeal also shares some traits with Gabbard's, and Yang also broke through the part via non-traditional venues, including outlets that are considered part of the intellectual dark web, a politically infamous network that generally criticizes concepts such as political correctness and identity politics, like they should. Like Gabbard, Yang also hasn't shied away from going on conservative talk shows, doing interviews with Fox News, personality Tucker Carlson, and conservative commentator Ben Shapiro, whereas some Democrats have refused to appear on Fox News. Well, that just means you're refusing to potentially swing over potential voters. That just means you're not for that half of America. That means, I'm afraid I can't go talk to anybody who's conservative because that's not my team. Well, you should be Team America. That's what you should be. And if those people will be willing to vote for you because they hear your ideas and like it, why not? So, still, for being an outsider candidate, Yang doesn't get as much support from Trump voters or conservatives as Gabbard does, but he still gets quite a bit. There's people in my comment section every single day saying, I'm going to vote for Trump if Yang doesn't win. Every day. You can check every single video. And that last week's poll from The Economist YouGov, for instance, 25% of Trump voters who said they planned to vote in 2020 Democratic primary said they intended to vote for Gabbard versus 2% who said they would vote for Yang. Similarly, that's the YouGov poll, though. YouGov's kind of biased against Yang. So that morning consult poll, Gabbard received 5% among very conservative and conservative primary voters and very little support among more, because conservatives are tired of this war. They like to conserve, not spend all this money. Real conservatives don't want, nobody wants constant freaking war. Only the political establishment does. So, anyways, I'm about to take back what I said about this. This is getting kind of, anyway. Nor does Yang get much disproportionate liberal support or another outsider race, Sanders, despite notable overlap between Sanders supporters and Yang supporters. According to, that makes no sense. How is he not having more liberal support even though there's overlap? Okay. Anyways, 538. I was defending you. Now I don't know what's going on with you guys. I should have read all the way through the article before I started making a video. You know what I'm saying? Got me. So now the question is whether he can expand his appeal beyond 3 or 4% nationally. Raising nearly $10 million in the third quarter certainly helps his case. That's real money he can use to build an on-the-ground campaign structure in early states like Iowa, New Hampshire, and with an army of small donors, Yang may have a reliable source of money to broaden his reach. Still, the crowded group of 4 candidates at the top of the poll will make it tough for him to actually win the nomination. That's what I'm talking about. They are somewhat fair. They don't sugarcoat it. So nonetheless, Yang's continued presence in the primary when other candidates with more traditional resumes have already dropped out speaks volumes to his appeal. Perhaps Thursday night will be an opportunity for him to gain real momentum. After all, despite speaking the fewest words in the last debate, Yang's net favorability improved the most of any candidate on stage in our pollings with IPSOS. Maybe don't write off Yang just yet, even if a lot would have to go right for him to break into the top 4. Thing is, a lot is going right for him, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times when people are polling for Andrew Yang, you get these percentage points, like they were talking about 9%, 8%, 4%, 3%, single digits. The amount of, Kyle Watson does a great video on this, the amount of people that are actually being polled who actually support Yang is about 1/4 of his entire support. So whenever you look at a poll and it says 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, double that, triple that, quadruple it. See what I'm saying? That's how that works. But of course, the media is not going to show you that. The media is not going to factor in hardly any sort of online polling. They hardly ever do. They hardly ever accept online polling. It's normally very tight, constricted, polling 300 people in one odd county that is known to only vote for one specific candidate they like. You know what I mean? Like, and then days before they're supposed to have polling in, they'll switch it and say, "Oh, we only want these polls out." They've done it before, you know. So it is what it is. But Yang is top among young voters. Sorry, Bernie. You know what I'm saying? I like you, bro, but you're slipping, man. You're slipping. Wish you the best of luck. Anyways, guys, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I might have more stories coming up later on today. I'm not sure. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one.
1, 2, 3, 4.